I wanted to say something more about what we have written in the last class, that is types of marriage. I wanted to continue a bit, about 5-10 minutes on that, then I will take you to marriage regulations, marriage functions, instability in marriage, kind of things. So largely our area of discussion today is marriage followed by family. Generally you establish a family after you get married. So in the topic of types of marriage, I say it again that I had given a small picture of this kind. See, in these topics of social anthropology, we expect the student to give very basic flow charts so that they communicate what you are actually. Sir, I told you by what we mean by types and forms of marriage is how many one can actually marry. So when we say serial monogamy, so the structure is like this. You explain each of them. You explain the meaning of them. You give a picture. You give the example there. So for that matter, serial monogamy is an individual would have a single partner in succession. In succession in the sense, suppose that happens, you are parting off and having your way. Suppose this happens, this fellow anyways would want to have. Whether on the death of a partner or because of the annulment of marriage, in both the situations you can have a successive partner there, but at any point of time you can have only one. A generally found practice in most of the mainstream societies, including the Chinese, Indian, traditional European, etc., we find this kind of a thing. And this is very interestingly found in Chinchus as well, where they have serial monogamy. And when it comes to lifetime monogamy, suppose that happens, you are there all alone. Suppose that happens, she is there alone. If that happens also, she is there alone. That is lifetime monogamy. One single partner for an individual, irrespective of the live or dead other partners, and then whether the marriage is annulled or not. And then actually these are the varieties that we have shown to you long time back when I was doing the TODA. Polygyny, by which we meant a man simultaneously having more than one wives. This particular thing we mention as non-sororal polygyny. That is sororal polygyny. In non-sororal polygyny, the wives of a man are not sisters. He is simultaneously wedded to several women and they are not sisters. Whereas in the sororal polygyny, the wives of a man are relatives, and mostly they may be immediate sisters or maybe the cousins, or some kind of a clan-based relationship exists between them. The immediate doubt people can get when I say that the sororal is actually sister-like or sisters. So if a man's wives are sisters, the immediate question that might come to many of the minds is that should they be not sisters, then whether we call it sororal or non-sororal. Here they are not related at all. These are closely related. The closest relation may be sisters or cousins or whatever. And then you can have polyandry. a female simultaneously married to more than one male. We have seen this non-fraternal polyandry, and this is a fraternal polyandry. If you could recall, we have also mentioned something earlier called familial polyandry. So how many one can marry is a cultural thing. You can add information from the small AV that you have seen for the basic information. So I wanted to show this only to communicate to you that it is important to have pictures in these topics. There are certain odd topics which we will be seeing today, like how you acquire mates, especially in the tribal society of India. But before that, I would be starting with regulations or rules of marriage. These are the rules, as I said to you, prescribe whom one can or one should not marry. One basic chart was given to you yesterday from Needham: proscribed, prescribed, and preferential. Proscribed, preferential, and prescribed. When you say that there is a rule, there is a regulation, it means that if I am not following the rule or regulation, there should be a punishment. So as you are moving from proscribed rules to the prescriptive rules, for violation of the rules, the amount of punishment reduces. As we are moving from proscribed to preferential to prescribed, the amount of punishment for violating the rule goes on reducing. See, among these we have this proscribed, meaning these are the ones that are forbidden. They are the banned marriages. You are not supposed to marry certain people. And one very popular example that we have written here is incest taboo. So we will have a small talk on incest related things now. Every culture group comes up with certain kinsmen who are not supposed to be considered for marriage. They are not for you. There is a ban on having a marriage or a sexual contact with those kinsmen. That's what we call incestuous relations. In some of the communities, including in the Indian tribal communities, we see a punishment such as the more violent ones, maybe occasionally taking the life of the person also, because corporal punishments are not there, so it is actually taking away the life of the individual. Whereas when you go to the preferential marriages, see, it is something like this. Preferential are, if at all you have that availability of those individuals, the community prefers you to marry that individual. That is where, kinship comes handy for us. One of the functions of kinship is it provides us with a mate. The moment you are born, you have a list of people whom you can actually marry. You need not have to struggle to find out whom you should consider. So if you are actually going for a preferential marriage, the respect in the society would increase. But it doesn't mean that you would be welcome to a major punishment there. You would be encountering a major punishment. Exogamy and endogamy, I'm so sorry, I should be writing this one. In exogamy and endogamy, this is one other way of defining, identifying whom you should and whom you should not marry. So this is something like, when I say proscribed, this is a small group. which is actually totally forbidden for you to choose a mate from. When it comes to the prescribed group, this is slightly a bigger one, from within which you may or may not be able to marry. So if I'm saying that incest is a closed group from which you're not supposed to marry, then exogamy rule prescribes that this is the group within which you're not supposed to marry. So incest is a part of exogamy. Incest is a sub-part of exogamy. Incest meaning in the close relatives you're not supposed to marry. In exogamy you say that these are the different kinds of groups within which you're not supposed to marry. You will have to choose a mate from outside this particular group. So exogamy and endogamy are some broader rules which say that you're not supposed to and you're supposed to marry these individuals. So punishments here could be much severe when compared to the forbidden marriages. Punishments such as, penal fees or, excommunication could be. Excommunication is the most commonly given punishment for the people. So considering you to be outcast. So suppose you are trying to marry from outside your own culture group of a caste. So the first punishment that you might be receiving would be the excommunication. Later other things might come. And when it comes to preferential marriages, as I was saying, if a readily available mate is there, because kinship has offered that mate to you, you respected the kin group and you have considered them in marriage, your respect in your community would increase, but otherwise you will not be having any major kind of punishments there. It may be that they would get upset. They thought that after you getting into service, you might marry her. But then after you got into service, you said that I never thought of her like that, and both of us, we thought that we are siblings, we grew up together. So kind of. I would want to start a small talk on incest. Parallelly, you should be studying from your booklet, page number 30, incest taboo. There are certain theories given there. Page number 30, AN03. Questions can be of this kind. There can be one which calls for different kinds of examples, such as incest is a culture rule. You can write the questions to ponder over them. Incest is a culture rule, comment. Incest is a culture rule. The other very commonly asked questions are incest taboo and theories of incest. Theories of incest taboo. The write-up that is given to you there deals primarily with incest taboo and the related theories. For all these questions, you would be starting by defining incest, which is a forbidden sexual contact or marriage with the close kinsman. Forbidden or close marriage or sexual contact with the kinsman. See how close the kinsmen that are considered to you in the form of incest is a culture thing. See, for a question such as incest is a culture rule, it means that there is incest across all the societies. There is incest across all the societies. But which is an incestuous group? Which is the closest group that you consider, you define it to be incestuous? That varies from culture group to culture group. It is generally said that nuclear family is the basic incestuous group. It's the primary group across all the societies. In a nuclear family, you must be having it, so we will be seeing the definitions later. In the nuclear family, at least one adult couple will be there who have marital or sexual relation. And it also parallelly says that this is the utmost number that you can have. There shall not be more than this in a nuclear family. The picture that I have given to you there, for example, those three relations between the father and the daughter, between mother and son, and between the siblings, these are the relations that are actually considered to be taboo in most of the communities. You have to bear in mind that people have come up with discussions on theories of incest taboo. Technically, if I'm not looking at those theories, my expectation is that why any community would come up with a rule to avoid the possible incest, unless otherwise there is a possibility of an incest emerging, they will not come with a regulation. See, because there is a possibility of trespassing, there is a possibility of violation of the rule, they have come up with some ideas to regulate such kind of contact. We were also speaking yesterday, why should there be an avoidance? In the kinship terminologies, kinship behaviors, we have this term called avoidance. Avoidance may be avoiding to talk, to see, to touch, to get in contact with particular set of relatives. And when you are trying to avoid, that might show a respect or a disrespect, or to avoid the possibility of any conflict in the group. I hope you are following what I'm saying. Don't worry about the others who are not there in the class. You enjoy your lecture. Avoidance is things like avoiding to speak, touch, or come in contact with particular set of people in the kin group in order to either show respect towards them or to show disrespect towards them, or in order to avoid any possible conflict in the in-group. So just imagine here whether incest, the acceptance, the feel of not getting into an incestuous relation is naturally there or not. That is not the question we are looking at. Just in case we consider them, maybe for our arbitrary talk here, let us say that that kind of a conscience is not there. Let's see, you are my mother and I should not have some kind of crush on you. If that rule is, that kind of a feel is not there, then both these individuals would be trying to lure her and to attract her. In the process, what happens, there would be a competition within the nuclear family. And it is not simply the competition. Because of that competition, it might be possibly this fellow trying to kill him or this fellow trying to eliminate him. We are also going to see in some of the lectures the instances where fratricide is generally resorted to. So what happens is, when there is a competition, the basic social organization, this is that institution on which the entire society actually depends. See, outside this group you might have occasions of keeping faith or not keeping faith, or there would be occasions of considering them close or not close. Those are all seasonal things. But when it comes to the nuclear family, this is that group that has to be remaining intact. And there has to be some kind of stability in the relationship. See, small, kind of disturbances, no joke, that is okay, that is fine, that is acceptable. But then it should not be like, today I consider you to be my relative, tomorrow I am not, or today you are close to me, tomorrow you are not close to me. That kind of thing is not possible, not advisable in the case of nuclear family. So in order to have the societal sustenance within the nuclear family, there shall not be competition. And maybe because of that, many societies come up with the idea of banning incest, or we call incest taboo. Taboo is something that is forbidden. There can be several kinds of taboos. You must have already heard of the food taboos, or several other taboos for that matter. Incest taboo is one of the taboos that bans the close sexual contact with the closest relatives. So across the societies, it is generally observed that nuclear family is a basic incestuous group. And of course, most of the textbooks speak about the aberrations therein. For example, the royal families of Egypt or Hawaiian society, etc. It is said that they have brother-sister marriages or close habitation. Maybe because of that fear, that a feel of closeness develops among them. Tribes like Vedda, they bring up their children, the male and female children, in separate compartments. At a very young age, they are separated. And the occasions of where they come together are very, very rare. I wanted to make this comment here. As one of the thinkers, Paul Bohannon, says, having a sexual contact within the nuclear family is generally not the prerogative of the common people. Looks to be slightly crazy, but this can be seen as a special right and prerogative that is given to people who are at the highest echelons in the society. In this particular context, the royal community is what we are considering as examples. So all common people, you cannot have your siblings as your mates, but only they can have, because they are the fellows who are there at the top. It indicates something else. It is not simply a prerogative that you should cohabit with your sibling. It is not simply that. It shows that for a sin or for a mistake, for which there is a highest level of punishment for the common man, the royalty there are exempted from that punishment. So don't look at it simply from the perspective of having a sex or having a marital relation with the sibling. It is not simply that. There is so much of other things that are involved. There are so many other things. One basic thing is they are not really subjected to the same rules and punishments as the common man is actually subjected to. That was the idea of Paul Bohannon. So keeping this in mind, you can actually observe several other rules that we are exposed to. For that matter, very simply put, in the Hindu society, the humans are generally prescribed to follow monogamy. But if you see the gods, barring a very few, most of our gods have more than one wives. So it shows that only the gods can have an exception from the rules. So you can actually understand it from that perspective. Now, there could be several other incestuous groups. We have given this example of Iroquois community. I am drawing it again for those of you who were not there or who forgot. In the kinship terminologies, interestingly, in this discipline, what happens is suddenly you disappeared for a week or so. Next time when you're coming, everything is new. I mean, in the sense that we're doing altogether a new topic. You feel as if you haven't missed any. Until you sit and try to see, what is the syllabus that I have missed. Then you realize that, okay, I have missed considerable amounts. So this was a picture I have given to show the kinship terms. We said at the time, I'm considering these. They are the important ones for me now. These are the basic siblings. This is a reference individual, male or female. With regard to him, from his perspective, his or her perspective, we are writing the relations. So for this individual, this is a brother, this is a sister. And we said there that parallel cousins whether they are maternal parallel cousins or paternal parallel cousins, they are called by the same kinship term. And we said there that it shows the same kind of importance that you give to the other cousins when compared to your own people. When I'm saying this, these parallel cousins are not supposed to be married, and hence they are a part of the incestuous relations. Similarly, when we are saying here that father and mother, if at all the same terms we are using for the paternal uncle and maternal aunt, the rule of incest automatically extends to them, that apart from your own parents, those uncles and aunts are also to be forbidden in marriage. Similarly, if you look at the many South Indian Hindu communities, parallel cousins are considered to be, to be incestuous. But you go slightly above into the northern territory, you find that, suppose I am using a different term for each of the genders, which is not the case with Iroquois. If you remember, all these are called with the same term in the Iroquois, but here I am trying to use different terms. To give the example of the North Indian Hindu society, whether it is parallel cousins or the cross cousins, they are actually not having different names, but in fact they are also considered to be 1 and 2. In the case of South Indian societies, we have different terms here. And this was indicating that, see, not the parallel cousins, but cross cousins can be considered in marriage. But most of the North Indian communities, we see that even the cross cousins are addressed by the same term as one's own siblings, and hence this entire group cannot be considered for marriage. See, when it comes to the South Indian populations, the parallel cousins are considered to be incestuous. You have different terms here. They are actually the people who are potential mates. In the case of South India, these are the preferential marriages. These are the preferential individuals in marriage. So the moment you are born, if at all you have an younger female cousin, you being a male fellow, if an younger female cross cousin, she is the first one to be considered for your marriage. But then when it comes to northern region, even the cross cousins are addressed with the same terminology as your own siblings, and they are also not considered for marriage. In fact, they are a part of incest. This seems to be very much typical to the mainstream American society, where you do not marry any of the cousins, not the first degree, second degree, third degree, till the fourth degree also. If at all you have the possibility of locating the relationship, you try to avoid such kind of marriages. We are trying to see the meaning of the term, meaning of the statement, incest is a culture rule. Incest is all pervasive, incest restriction is all pervasive, but which is an incestuous group depends on that culture. Generally, universally, we find that family is a basic incestuous group, though there are exceptions in the royalty. But outside the nuclear family, different cultural groups might identify different individuals to be banned. It may be parallel cousins in one case, it may be cross cousins in the other case. But at the same time, if we see the Arabian populations, such as the Bedouin, and Islamic societies, all these can be the mates. This can also be a possible mate. There can be restrictions such as half siblings should not marry. Half siblings should not marry and so meedi tanale maadi tanale the first can वहाँ से half siblings से see when it comes to Bedouins there is a restriction against marrying one's own siblings, number one. Secondly, the incestuous group may extend to one's half siblings. They are half siblings. They share one parent in common. These are half siblings. These can also be half siblings. But the problem is when she herself is bearing, putting them here or here becomes a difficulty. Unless otherwise there is an established procedure that says that, okay, no, I own this fellow and I own this girl. So in such kind of examples, you try avoiding this. You can give this as an example for half sibling, especially when you're speaking of the Arabian population. In the Arabian population, you don't find this one, you find that. So it means that if at all you are sharing the same father, you will not be marrying, and then you will not marry your own father, but you can marry father's brother. The brother can be own brother, or it may be a cousin. So the incestuous group narrows down to your own sibling, to your half sibling, to your own father. Now one student was asking me this. Suppose this happens. Is it accepted? Don't go with your own conscience and all those kinds of feelings. Don't worry about all that. Go in a very mathematical way. The rule says that your own father you are not supposed to. So he is not her own father. And there is no prescribed rule. Nowhere it is written that you are not supposed to. So based on the situation you can take. See, what I find here is the problem is not simply about what is an incestuous group. Within the community, there will be so much of a confusion. There is no one standard relationship with the individual. So I cannot put all these individuals in the brother's banner or possible husband's banner. Anybody can be your husband. Other than your own sibling, other than your own father. So till the previous day you were addressing him as uncle, and tomorrow there is a marriage fixed with that individual, and suddenly the social status and the relationship, the role there changes. More than anything else, I think in kinship terminologies this might lead to a confusion. But see, in spite of the confusion, things have been going on for centuries and they will go on for centuries. You need not have to worry. Cultures invent their own ways of adapting. Is this okay? This is one of the incestuous. There can be other incestuous groups that would merge us to rules like exogamy and endogamy. I would hence stop it there. But then when you're writing a question such as incest is a culture rule, you may extend that there. It is not simply the very close kinsmen in some of the communities, like many of the tribes in Arunachal, you're not supposed to marry from within your same village. Technically, it is an example for exogamy. You have to marry from outside your village. But we can give it as an example for incest also. When the boys and girls are brought up together in the same village, you in principle are treated as siblings, and hence you are not supposed to. In the theories that we have written there are different varieties. One very popular one is the Westermarck's theory, that is familiarity breeds contempt. Familiarity breeds contempt. So one of the answers for why brothers and sisters do not get into the sexual contact could be that they grew up together, they know each other, and you're not interested in the ones that you know very well. Maybe something that is not known to you, something that is puzzle is interesting for you. The unknown attracts you more than what is known. This kind of an observation you can you can actually do with some of the case studies that I will share with you. A complete document on case studies. One case study is there by the Chicago University. They tried to take people from different families, like almost like an adoption into the other family. They are not actually linked through the bloodline, but then there is an element of adoption there, something like foster child thing. When an adopted fellow comes into your family and you grew up with him or her, almost a similar kind of a bond is established between them, and the rule of incest automatically extends to them. So this is a question about, is it really the bloodline that is responsible, or maybe the culture within which you are growing that makes you feel about each other in that particular way. See, among the several theories that are mentioned there on page 30, childhood familiarity theory of Westermarck, etc., etc. Most of the theories, they don't communicate why there has to be a rule and why this rule alone. For example, I consider this man alone, Westermarck. What he says is, because these are familiar people, there is an inherent disinterest among them, and hence they will not indulge into such kind of a relationship. If they don't indulge in a relationship, you need not have to come with a regulation at all. Regulation becomes necessary only if there is a possibility of trespassing, and then you talk about punishment. There are certain other rules that are mentioned there. See, in the more evolved societies, more scientifically advanced societies where researches must have happened, and you have a confirmation that, if these are the close skin marriages, then there is a possibility of higher risk of inherited diseases. With all the kind of genetic material, you are able to prove it there. But see, Bohannon explains it in a different way. What he says is, all this technical knowledge must have come much later. But there must have had some kind of an understanding in the primitive people. And when this kind of a trend is repeated, see, I have married very close fellow, and that resulted in some kind of an abnormality or premature death or some kind of a thing. And when you're repeating such kind of a marriage, such kind of a relationship, you see the same thing repeating. It might strike them that maybe because I'm doing this, this is happening, and hence, even without having any major scientific knowledge, they must have come to a conclusion that no, this shall not be taken up. That was Bohannon's idea. Most of the books do not talk about it. They say that, societies, when they become advanced and they know the technical things and this, But you have to understand that incest taboo is much older than all this scientific research. That might be because of the results they have seen, and they must have come up with a conclusion that we must not get into such kind of relationship. So you can actually go through the 2-3 other theories that are there. Why is it that incest should not be? But then here you will have to understand that for Tyler, it is nothing to do with one's conscience. It is nothing to do with the competition within the family or within your in-group. For him, one has to marry from outside so that one can survive. So the principle that he gives is marry out or perish. Marry out or perish. If you are not marrying out, you are actually depriving yourself of a gift that can be presented to an outsider. So it is nothing to do with a belief system that I should not marry within. That might result in some kind of untoward incidents, etc. The only idea he was having is, for the survival of a group, it is necessary to marry out. That looks to be much more practical. Similarly, when Levi-Strauss looks at incest, for him, any exchange for the survival of the group can best be executed in the form of generalized reciprocity. Any exchange for the survival of a group can best be executed in the form of generalized reciprocity. For him, incest has an underlying theme of something like a philanthropy. He believes in the fact that you should give and you should not expect things back. In some of the communities, such as Gonds, we find this. When you are giving an individual, you shall not expect things immediately back from them. If everything goes well, maybe in the next generation, there's a possibility of getting a girl from there. So it is like mother's sister's daughter, marrying mother's sister's daughter. So it's like this. No, father's sister's daughter. I'm so sorry. What happened was that, there is this fellow, I forgot him. In this generation, this individual has brought this female from this family. This is the family of origin. From the family of origin, this individual has got the wife. So in this generation. Thankfully, in the next generation, they had a female child. So it is something like give back, pay away the debt you owe to this community because they have given you a girl. So in the next generation, you give away the girl. This is a generalized reciprocity. You are not looking for an immediate benefit, but maybe sometime in the future. See, had it not been the male-female child, if this had happened, you wouldn't bother. And interestingly, the communities, the families where this kind of a marriage had happened, they would wish for having a female child so that their debt can be given up, prepaid. This looks to be very unusual. In the mainstream Hindu society, we don't find such kind of craving for the female child, irrespective of the religion for that matter. Across all the religions, all the mainstream religions, we find that there's a craving for this fellow. Of course, in the Hinduism, we have a belief that only he can save us from whatever after the life. I thought that maybe whatever hell he had to show, he had shown on this earth itself. Even if the parents would be going to the hell after the death, they would not feel the pinch because they already had enough when they were here. Don't get me wrong. Okay. We are talking about various incest rules. Sir, can you flip the pages to kinship behavior? There are some pictures I've drawn there. In kinship behavior, on the right-hand side of that page, you avoid so there is a joking relationship mentioned there. Page number cheppandi. What's the page number? 61. Joking relationship. It is the kind of relationship that one can have between potential partners. That's how it is defined. But the example that I have given there might run you crazy. Generally, grandfather, granddaughter, grandparents and grandchildren relationship is on a much jovial side. It's not that kind of a very serious thing. They try to regulate the grandchildren through their funny talk and not really being very strict and rule bound. There may be occasions where they are trying to save you from your parents. The whole process, wahan tak to theek hai. These are certain things that they have found in the research. The close contact between the grandfather and granddaughter. Wahan tak to fir bhi theek hai. There's the other one there. Grandmother and grandson giving rise to child also. This, Elvin says, is an aberration. This could be an aberration. Till joking relations, it is fine. But otherwise, these are incestuous groups. One's own grandfather, grandparents could be an incestuous group. Though not specifically defined anywhere. See, everything you cannot have in the rule book. When we made the constitution, we didn't know what kind of trespassing might happen. The reason why we go on amending it is whenever we find a new situation, we would try to. When we find people like this, we try to expand the list of incestuous relations also. So this can also be written as one of the examples in incest and how Elvin was trying to say that these are aberrations. And with the new situations emerging, culture groups come up with new lists of incestuous mates. But suppose one is a creationist, he believes that everybody, each one of us, were born from the same family. So meaning that the whole lot of humanity is the result of incest. The sin was already committed. It was not simply the female by eating that fruit that she had committed the sin. It's not simply that. After that, so when this must have happened, somewhere this must have happened. So there's no other go. You cannot think of seeds coming from heaven and doing the rest of the work for you. This must have definitely happened. So the entire humanity, somewhere or the other, is the result of incestuous relation. I don't want to extend on that, though I would want to show the lineages, etc., who married whom and things like that. That would go into altogether a different discussion. Let me take you elsewhere. We'll go to the second category, that is preferential marriages. In preferential, we have mentioned three, What are they? Sororate, levirate, uncle, niece, and cousin marriages. Though you know this, I would want to repeat this for you. In sororate, what happens is, the definition looks funny. Sororate says that a male's wife's sisters, look at the definition. A man's wife's sisters are his potential mates. The definition doesn't indicate whether it is when the wife is alive or dead. I repeat the definition for you. After all, when a male is writing the definitions, this should anyway happen. A man's wife's sisters are his potential mates. Originally, he married her. She has so many other fellows. Right from the day one, he is looking at them. Looking for an opportunity. In some communities, it is possible that you may add simply this. And the whole lot becomes his. But suppose it is not there. Eliminate. And all the more so if such a society has the institution of bride price. He must have paid hefty amount, not for her, for a future. Once this happens, see, annulment of marriage could be due to different reasons. So this is actually linked to annulment of marriage also. Annulment may be generally because of some kind of a disturbance between you. Disturbances have many causes. And what are the primary causes? Married people here? I actually inquire about the married fellows in the class for this class. One problem that I find with the males who have non-working wives is that by the time he comes home, she is ready to go out. Throughout the day, you are out having fun in the office, and now let us go out. Once in a while, it is okay. Every evening, just because she is ready to offer you a cup of coffee the moment you go home. Don't think that only for a coffee you should be marrying. That can be given by somebody else also. మన typical South Indian feeling ఎలా ఉంటుందంటే ఇంటికి రాగానే etc. and then with a cup of coffee she should be available on the doorstep waiting for you. Tell me, what are the basic things where the problem starts? Expectations. See, the statement is much more wise than my parents. See, she's so wise. In spite of not being married still. Never have expectations. The moment you start to have expectations, you are bound to have a problem. That's why I tell the students when they take admission, don't have any expectation from me. Once you start having expectations, I also won't expect much from you. Maybe అప్పుడప్పుడు ఏదన్నా కొంచెం రాయండి, కొంచెం క్లాస్కి రండి, kind of. I don't have much more expectation than that. The moment you start having expectations, so what can be the expectation? She says economy. Economy maybe that what I can understand from her is maybe he is not earning the amount that you. Okay, you're not actually earning so much. What can you earn with a government job? Though 7th pay commission is there, 10% DA. Those of you who have been working in the government, you know, what is this 10% they are talking about? Is it that the 10% of the salary, or 10% of the basic pay at least, or 10% of the DA that was already being given to you? The hike that was given was on the DA actually. So if the DA was about 2,000 for that matter, so 10% of the 2,000. But the news that comes in the paper is as if they are being given lakhs and crores of rupees, every individual. And then everybody would talk about it. Say your DA has increased, congratulations. Bichara ye chai bhi nahi pila sakta with the increase that has happened. So the first expectation may be the economics. Any other expectations? Loyalty. Time allocation. ये तो girls का हमेशा ही problem है. You have to understand this. The more time you get, the more unstable the marriage becomes. The more time you get, the more unstable the marriage becomes, especially in today's times. See, at one point of time, there were joint families. The private time, the romantic time for the couple was hard to get. The basic time, the minimum time that they used to get, they used to try to make it maximum and produce as many children as possible. Understanding, sharing, talking about things, talking about Iran-Iraq war and kind of thing, there's no time at all. You can't even talk about the mega war that you had between yourself and your mother-in-law. You don't want to waste time by talking about it because that would upset the entire relationship. But in today's times, in the nuclear family, everybody's expectations have reached a zenith. It is not simply her, your expectations for her also. So actually the nuclear family is suffering a lot because of this kind of stress, expectation stress. Everywhere there is an expectation. Children expect from you. Parents, being parents, you expect from the children, and the couple expect from each other. But then understand that we are human, our abilities to make the other people happy are very limited. And the best solution will be, don't expect time. Whatever little time that you have, talk sense. That's very important. Talk sense. How many times she must have asked, do you love me? Ekkadi prashna. Yesterday you have asked. Today morning also you asked. It's like every morning and evening there's an attendance that I'm maintaining. And suppose in the mood that you have because of the vexed up situations in the office, etc., your response to the same question has slightly altered in intensity. There's something that is happening back there. So talk little. The second one. So one is economics, the second one is time, third one? మీరు లాయల్టీ దగ్గరే ఇరుక్కున్నాను నేను అప్పటి నుంచి చూస్తున్నాను. There's so many loyalty issues. And division of labor. Division of labor in the sense? Household work. The problem now with us is when women started to work. When women started to work, and in many cases women are earning pretty better than the male, the questions start emerging. I am earning as much as you are earning, or maybe much more than you. So who should be doing the household task? Whoever is dominant. This actually is very nagging thing. That's also the reason why I advise my boy students to learn to do their basic things such as cooking, doing your laundry. You should show to her that you are not dependent on her. This is another weapon females have. See, if at all we are not there, you cannot survive. But if at all you are, and I have seen that boys make the best chefs. It is a very rarity that, in the multi-star restaurants, having a female as the chief chef is a rarity. It is the males that have. And I love this particular gesture from my husband. Now, when I go out of the city, when I come back, he would have the entire table ready with the kind of sumptuous food. He's the best cook. He makes chicken, awesome, and then dal and biryani kind of things. And what else do I need? But the thing is, it's a rarity. If you are doing every day, you would not have that kind of a loyalty is one. Anything else? One other thing that I wanted. Danik deeniki teda enti space ki privacy ki teda. I am looking for one answer so that I can sexual satisfaction or maybe infidelity. So the last two actually, infertility or infidelity and things like, expectations from the emerging economies, market economies, where there is a tussle to fix the roles and responsibilities to the individuals. Once you are letting her out of the house, you are exposing her to all kinds of pollution. The most potential pollution is fight for rights. Once you are exposing her to the ideas of feminism, if she gets contaminated by that, families would fall like pack of cards. I would send you some very beautiful quotations from some of the feminist evaluators, what feminism, the feminist movement has actually done to the families. So much of ruining of the families, so fundamentals, the foundations of the society seem to be shaking. They all go by the basic premise that there has to be gender equality. I strongly believe that one has to look at whether it is necessary or whether it is desirable. Don't get me wrong, because most of the time these days, we find the so-called well-educated females talking a language demeaning the other gender and trying to create a world that can live all by one gender. See, certain writings from there you will really appreciate if you read. Just imagine somebody who is taking the flags and placards and ruling the roost on the roads throughout the day. By evening, what kind of affectionate, intimate relation she can be having with the husband? Because you are actually talking about not simply one or few males on the road. It is the general anti-male campaign. I am not trying to pull back the females who are fighting for the rights. It is their right, let them fight. But then there is a subtle line between your right and responsibility, your sustenance and maybe your contentment. I generally don't talk about it much in the class because I might look to be very old-fashioned there. But sometimes I think in order for the society to continue, somewhere a bit of sacrifice becomes necessary. Now don't resort to, this is one more thing that is happening in the couple these days. Each of them try maintaining a list. I sacrificed this, what did you do? I sacrificed this, what did you do? If at all you have sacrificed, maybe it is for your own happiness you have sacrificed. Nobody is compelling you. Why I say these things in the classes is, especially in the field of civil services, when you come in here, you would be encountering occasions of cadre-based marriages and then the like, service-based marriages. What prominently exists there is service or cadre. You will have to look for, if it is okay, if it is there, fine, but otherwise you should have to search for love in the relationship. And the last sentence I will say, and I'll take you elsewhere. Though I said this many times, I wanted to reiterate this. See to it that you stay together. because out of sight, out of mind. The compartments in the mind and heart easily get vacant and get occupied by other things and other individuals. Then naturally the question of loyalty comes. Married? Kaadu kada. Anta baadaga ledantunnaru. We'll see. So we were actually talking about sororate, where there is a potentiality that all the females, all the sisters of this female are potential mates of this individual. Whereas when it comes to levirate, a female is entitled to marry the deceased husband's brother. This practice of marrying a deceased husband's brother we call levirate, which can be senior levirate and junior levirate. Senior levirate is marrying the elder brother, and junior levirate is marrying younger brother. Younger brother of the deceased fellow, elder brother of the deceased fellow. Don't have a traditional conservative Hindu kind of thinking there, where there are popular sayings that husband's elder brother is like your father or fatherly figure. You are looking for father in him and he is looking at a figure in you. I didn't say. Senior and junior levirate there. There's some examples which you can scribble. Huge numbers actually. Many I tried to pick up from India alone. Sororate may be a situation where you have taken bride price and you can't return it to him. And in such a situation, you would try to compensate by giving another female in marriage. That is the compensation.
It is only when if the female dies.
We'll talk about it. Finish writing, we'll talk about it.
Is bride price compulsory in sororate?
No, I'll talk about it. That's the same question he was asked. Finish writing the Trobrianders, populations of Solomon Islands. Arapesh you have heard of earlier. Savaras, Koya, Chinchu, Ho, Santhal, Munda, Chukchi. Chukchi is a Red Indian population. Sororate, one of the reasons I said is, when there is a bride price, you have given a bride price, she died, you cannot compensate, and hence you are providing another female, the immediate sister or some relative of the deceased girl. Sororate can also be an institution in the context of unstable marriages or annulled marriages. And if at all the instability is because of the wrongdoing of the female, if you can prove that she is at fault, then you can give up that marriage and ask for a bride price to be returned. So in the first case, what we have said at sororate is, you have taken bride price, she died, they cannot give back, so they gave this back. This is the first case. Second case is, you have taken bride price, I'm so sorry. You have taken bride price, and there's something wrong with her. Because of this, you don't want this. So this population has to give back the bride price. As they are not in a position to, they are offering. This is because of that loyalty issue. Thirdly, you have given bride price. She is infertile. She cannot give birth to a child, and hence they have to give. The three prominent cases there. Picture is one and the same that I have written. First situation is death. Second situation is adultery. Third situation is infertility. Just think if it is possible as a mirror image. If it is a mirror image, for example, you have given dowry, he died. Can you claim the dowry back? If you are not in a position to give the dowry, give me somebody else. Or, because there is adultery, I don't want this marriage. You pay back my dowry or give me some other fellow. You are infertile. I don't want you. Give me a fertile fellow. On the other hand, there is another system here. In levirate, if he dies without an offspring, so even if you have the system, it is for the advantage of the male. So because there is no offspring, cohabit with my brother, give birth to a child. The child belongs to our lineage. The child can be considered as the one that is born to you couple. And because you have nowhere to go, stay with us. I am anywhere there. Though I have somebody else, I can take care of you also. Such a kind-hearted, broad-minded, and there are certain other things. Surrogate, there's one more example that you can. Child is born, she died, child is an infant, needs care, nobody else can give a better care than maternal aunt, and hence how can you be simply a dai for him? Take care of me also. These things do not require a grand anthropological study. Whatever must have been happening around you in your family, household, you can actually report them as examples. Okay. Senior levirate, junior levirate. Sometimes what might happen is there are children, he died. If at all you are going away from this family, you want a parting of the property, which we don't want. Instead of you taking the child and the property, you get wedded to somebody from us, so that you and your son can stay with us. The entire property would remain intact. So in the whole process, I'm not questioning who is actually making sacrifices, whether him or him, whose will is prevailing. No, those are not things that we are actually not to discuss. This is what we are reporting. What are the other preferential marriages there? Uncle-niece? Uncle-niece marriages are there? So proscribed is incest taboo. These all come under preferential. One of the preferential set is levirate and surrogate. Other preferential examples that we have written, one is the uncle-niece marriage. Across several types of marriages, this is the only properly defined intergenerational marriage. So this is an intergenerational marriage. A maternal uncle belongs to a parental generation, and you are in the filial generation. So this is the only a special case in societies like India. We also find in Solomon Islands, Arapesh population, such kind of. You have certain other things. In the preferential case, just have a look at this. Cross-cousin marriages. What I mentioned there is patrilateral cross-cousin, matrilateral cross-cousin. And then you have the other parallel cousin marriages. So you can quickly make a picture there. Marrying a father's sister's daughter. Patrilateral cross cousin. Through father, you are trying to trace. And most of these marriages are defined from the male perspective. So you are marrying your father's sister's daughter. Patrilateral cross cousin. When we say cross cousin marriage, the bride and groom are the children of siblings of opposite gender. And then you have matrilateral cross cousin. Mother's brother's daughter. Marrying a mother's brother's daughter. Father's brother's daughter. Mother's sister's daughter. Any preferential marriage, for that matter, is in order to strengthen the relations within the kin group, to keep the community together, to see to it that your riches are not parted with the others from outside the group. It goes by the belief that a known devil is better than an unknown angel. The first one is patrilateral cross cousin. From the father's side, you are writing the relationship cross cousin. So the parents, in the parental generation, you have opposite genders in the siblings. So brother, sister, their children are marrying. In one case, you are marrying father's sister's daughter. In the other case, mother's brother's daughter. The later variety, marrying a mother's brother's daughter, is the most common one in South India. Marrying a mother's brother's daughter. Parallel cousin marriages, we have said Bedouins and Islamic groups. Some examples you can see there, Trobrianders. They have more preference for father's sister's daughter. Trobrianders have more preference for father's sister's daughter. Whereas in South Indian Hindu society, there is a higher preference for mother's brother's daughter. The reason is explained by Skupin. Trobrianders are matrilineal society. Trobrianders are matrilineal society. So naturally your lineage name, lineage rights, etc. goes through the maternal line. On many occasions, they also tend to become matrilocal as well. See, when the locality is matri, lineage is matri, many times authority might also become matri. There's no rule though. So there is something like a more stricter, more firmer relationship that you have on your mother's side in a matri-based society. Generally what happens is children be more affectionate with the parental side that gives them more of pampering and less of rules and restrictions. So if it is a patri-based society, you tend to get attracted more towards the matri side. Don't write it as matricide, killing of mother. No, I'm not saying that. Maternal relatives. Hence we can say that in the mainstream Hinduism, which is patrilocal, patriarchal, patrilinear, there is a general orientation towards, there's a general attraction towards the maternal side. Most often it's a rarity that in your vacations you go to your father's parents' house. That's a rarity. You prefer to go to your mother's parents' side so that you get the required pampering there. It's not simply you getting pampered, your mother also. It is also understood in a way that when she is there in a patri-related family and institution, giving up or getting into the drudgery being the gender that serves. So she also looks for some kind of a way out, some kind of a time out for herself to let loose. So it is basically for her, not for you. When she keeps it as a precedence that every summer she goes to her parents' house, you also, there's no other go. Father will not keep you with him. He's also looking for some kind of a way out. When does she go so that I can freak out kind of a thing. So you're going with your mother. When you're doing that, you're getting into more attraction, more kind of affection from the maternal side. This is how it happens, and quite possible that mother's brother is there, brother's daughter is there, and you get into the relationship there. And after all that had happened, your father cannot say anything because he was responsible for you to go there every summer. If at all he did not want that, he could have stopped you there. Kind of. I know you're remembering all that had happened back home. And your father trying to put you in the dark room. That's where it happens. Trobrianders, they are matri-based societies, so they are attracted towards father's, sister's daughter. And Brazilian farmers, these are actually the ones practicing a parallel cousin marriage, that is father's brother's daughter, marrying father's brother's daughter. What they are looking for is, they do not want the brother's properties to be divided. Marriage is an institution that divides the properties, divides the families, and divides the communities. And hence, they prefer such kind of a thing. I think I'm right, Kada. I think I'm right. The happiness in your family at the end of the day depends on the new member that is entering your family. There are the other fellows, Khasis. This is very interesting. You love your father's sister's daughter, but you'll have to wait till his death. Either you wait or you kill. So those are some of the preferential marriages. Let us get into prescribed ones. Exogamy and endogamy. Sir, I will send you an article, titled as Nothing Wrong with Consanguineous Marriages. Because several medical fellows have been talking about this. Don't get into consanguineous relationships, all that would lead to several deleterious things. So we go with one of the anthropological writings that there is nothing wrong with consanguineous mating. Whatever damage had to happen had already happened. And the deleterious ones were already eliminated long time back. Whatever we have is the fresh stock or the good stock. If at all something has to go wrong, that may be because of some mutation that might happen, but otherwise we are good enough. They should have got the doubt. It is not considered actually. Most often what is reported in the sororate relations is related to the individual and her younger sisters. But if the elder sister also wants to show her right, then she can also say, no, I am also there. But otherwise it is for... No, there is no division that way. Maybe you are giving him a free hand. Sir.
Regarding marriages, South Indians also follow the same type of relationship, like same like Arabians. Marrying.
More or less, yes. Unless otherwise you got into the cultural theme of the setting. Otherwise, it is the same. We are also victims of this confusion in our family. So, two of my cousins get married. Parallel cousins, if they get married. So till now both of us, एक तो दीदी है, एक तो भैया है. हम तो वैसे ही बुलाएंगे. But what are they going to call each other? And suddenly one very young chacha becomes your husband. So what do you call him, chacha? And then... Now I'm not trying to belittle the whole practice. These are the practical problems. You look at kinship behavior. और एक बार देखिए kinship behavior. There is one behavior there called tacnonymy. Kinship behavior. Tacnonymy. Tacnonymy is addressing certain kinsmen not with the name. You're not supposed to address certain individuals by their name. So instead of calling Chacha, maybe some other title. No, I don't want to use those titles in the class, but then. Very popular one being Haji. And he has a much slang over there again. That is a lower class thing, but then. So it shows the Telugulo ఏమే అంటాం కదా దానికి మరి ప్యారలల్ ఉండాలి కదా అట్లా. Maybe there the tacnonymy works. Just observe, I mean you must have definitely by now. The way your parents might be calling each other. Culture change has a clear impact there. How your parental generation was addressing each other. and how your generation is addressing. There, I think the relationship was a combination of respect and love, the togetherness and belongingness. Times change. You consider that you are more than equal to him. So somewhere down the line, respect vanishes when you start addressing each other with the names. I'm not against it. No? It's after all your life. You may say that though we are calling each other by the names, we have love in touch. Okay, fine, very good. But there are several other things along with that. In the process of enculturation, the kind of relationship the parents are having, that would definitely have an impact on that fellow who is growing. एक वो advertisement था देखिए, I don't remember about which. So two nuclear families meet, and one family has a boy and the other family has a girl. So they have to play. And then it starts, क्या करोगे? मम्मी पापा का game चल रहा है उधर. And then आप क्या करोगे? When after I come, I sit and read the newspaper and I yell at the wife, and then what will she do? She will be cooking and doing kind of things. And then at one, I think that is a domestic violence के बारे में कुछ है. And then the boy says that no, I will hit you, kind of. Then everybody is puzzled, and then government says, see, this is not the problem. Actually, the advertisements give the pulse of the culture, the transition that we are exposed to. Have a look at this. Endogamies are of different kinds. Endogamy is seeking a mate from one's own culturally defined group. Endogamy is seeking a mate from one's own culturally defined group. Seeking a mate from one's own culturally defined group. Meaning that you are supposed to marry from within this group alone. It may be a religious endogamy, a regional endogamy. Say Punjabi marrying a Punjabi and a Tamil marrying Tamil is fine. A Punjabi and Tamil becomes difficult. Initially, as
Cousin marriages, are they consanguineous marriages?
they're consanguineous.
All the parallel processes?
All of them are consanguineous. Consanguineous is nothing but the close kin marriages. That is one of the closest.
So blood relation, consanguineous is related to blood.
Yes, in both it is there. In all of them it is there, either from the father's side or mother's side.
So the incest and the cross, the levirate, sororate, those will also be, those won't be doing.
Levirate, sororate, they don't come under consanguineous.
But the incest,
Unless otherwise they are already from consanguineous groups. Incest is a very close consanguineous mating.
cousins also.
No. You
Get out of the nuclear family tree. So we are marrying some other brothers or sisters. So it is also kind of when we extend the boundary of incest. That comes under it.
I think you are marrying not your sister, your wife's sister. You have anyway married your wife. I mean, that girl became your wife. So, unless otherwise, you both have a consanguineous relation. Suppose you are already from a consanguineous group. So, maybe a parallel cousin, maybe a cross cousin kind of a thing. And then one more parallel or cross cousin is entering into the relationship. But otherwise, It is not concept. And hence, and when you're saying, defining it as incest, that may be decided by the culture group. Otherwise, there is nothing like a close kin marriage. Close kin, if at all you are considering the bloodline. If you are not considering the bloodline, this might be a close kin marriage. But then, sister has already married you, meaning that she is also a potential mate for you. Don't worry, you are allowed. This is not incest. At least in our community. Thank you, very good. మనసులో ఏమేమి ఉన్నాయో it's better you get rid of all the confusions now itself before you get into relationships. Very scientifically, technically, financially, politically planned. And regional endogamy, tribe endogamy, they might be because they do not want some kind of surprising elements to enter the community. Especially in the tribal community, endogamy is preferred due to the fear of magic. Don't know what kind of magic she would come and operate on us. This is unlike the Arunachal example that I am giving, village endogamy. So here, village is not considered to be the incestuous group. Village population is not an incestuous group. Actually, it is a recommended group from where you are supposed to. But then within the village, other exogamous rules might operate. Within the village, other exogamous rules operate. So, you have a family within which you are not supposed to marry. And you have a clan within which you are not supposed to marry. Or you might have a lineage within which you are not supposed to marry. So these restrictions may be there within otherwise endogamous group. Every endogamous group will have some smallest possible exogamous group. The very smallest exogamous group may be a family. Are you following what I am saying? When I say endogamy, you are supposed to marry within. You are not supposed to marry from outside. So if I have to find a mate, I should find from my own village. But in my village, I cannot marry, I cannot consider of marrying anybody. I'll have to eliminate a few. Meaning that even within any endogamous group, there will be some exogamous group. The basic exogamous group is a family, a little more will be a lineage, a little furthermore maybe a clan. And within the village, maybe it is possible that I will have to marry from within my own caste. So, village endogamy, within my village I have so many caste groups. I am supposed to marry from within my own caste group. So this is one endogamous group. Within that there is another endogamous group. And here it is not totally endogamous. Once again we may have something of this kind. I have gotras within the caste. I am not supposed to marry within my gotra. So you are following. So within every endogamous group there are exogamous groups and there is a possibility of having further endogamous groups. Clear, sir? అర్థమైందా కాలేదా? ఏదో మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నారు ఇద్దరు. Moiety endogamy we have come across earlier. Moiety endogamy, moiety exogamy. Unless otherwise there is a clear discrimination, clear hierarchy mentioned, such as in the bills you have the cleaner ones and the dirtier ones. Moiety can be an exogamous group. So in Toda, it is seen that both endogamy and exogamy is found. There is no clear rule that you should be following only one. Though there is one that is prescribed, they tend to marry from both the groups, that is moiety 1 and moiety 2. Caste endogamy. There are a few things that I have written. So generally you tend to marry from a group where you know the people, cultural similarities are there. So if somebody from Punjab and Tamil Nadu, they may not be thinking of marrying across those regions, primarily because of the cultural differences, maybe the food habits and everything. So as long as the cultural differences are not there, you will focus on several other problems. If cultural differences are there, you are busy solving the cultural differences. But you will have to understand that throughout marital life, you are solving some problem or the other. You see which is a better problem to deal with. Within the same community, so if you think that within the tribe, within the village, within the region, etc., I don't want to part off my wealth with you, I would want to keep it within. These are only some examples we are considering. Most popular are the caste endogamy. Or no, so basically you don't want to share your riches with the others. So you see to it that within your own caste, suppose this looks good. If I give this example, marrying my father's sister's daughter or mother's brother's daughter, they are the cross cousins. I prefer, because I don't want my wealth to go from both the sides. I want it for myself. Look at some of the other ones. Exogamy. Clan exogamy, you can also write family exogamy. Family exogamy, clan, lineage, fratry. Wherever phratries exist, they are generally exogamous groups. Other than this, other than the village, the rest of the ones are considered to be exogamous because you find the same ancestor there. There is a common ancestry traced, whether it is a family, clan, lineage, or fratry. In all the cases, you are tracing a common ancestry, meaning that technically you are siblings, and hence fall in the incestuous group. Exogamy in the bands, Taylor says, it helps in the times of crisis. Suppose you are following band exogamy. If your band has not much of food, the other band can help you. A Risley statement is very apt. There is a rule of exogamy because Westermarck feels anyway people won't marry within the group, they are familiar, and hence they are not interested. Audrey Richards and Taylor, they seem to be having a similar thought. When there is food shortage, if not this group, the other group will help. Similarly, Taylor also talks about this exogamy. For your own survival, exogamy is important. Marry out or perish. Those are some of the regulations of marriage. So you begin by defining, give the meaning of regulations or laws of marriage. You give a pointer about what happens to the punishments as one is moving from proscribed to prescribed to preferential. Write about each of them. Try giving examples and reasons for each of them. Though this is not really a question that I expect, but as a formality, I thought From the social anthropology booklet that is served to you, you can, what does marriage give? It not simply ensures you with the sensual satisfaction, but it also regulates one's sex life. A regulated sex life giving rise to the family and offspring. As we all know, economic cooperation, whether in terms of marriage payments and after marriage payments to each other. In the weekend, when you are free, you read this article that I will send to you. Gay marriages from anthropological perspective, if some of you are really keen on knowing about them. We told you yesterday, it is individual's preference, we are nobody to tell you. That article talks about the historicity of the practice. Though many governments are trying to give them a recognition, a legal recognition, and trying to showcase their modernity, even in the very primitive societies, the practice was existing. So maybe by giving recognition to what is unnatural, they are exhibiting their primitive nature. I don't know, I didn't say anything. Sometimes there are several slips of tongue. Not simply the institution of marriage, several social institutions for that matter have experienced the wrath of change of time, especially when alternatives emerge. So if marriage was for sexual satisfaction, for the offspring, one need not have to go for it. Marriage need not be for that emotional, intellectual, whatever. Or for that matter, for social solidarity. In fact, marriage might disturb social solidarity. As long as you did not get into the nuptial bond, you were a group with solidarity. The moment it happened, we and they is formed. Till the marriage happens, you treat yourself as we and together. The moment it happens, the line gets established. So, along with any social institution, the nature of it, the need of it, the functionality of it keeps on changing. We have seen in the definitions, there is no one single definition, there are umpteen number of them. So with times changing, with the practices changing, there is a requirement of modifying definitions also. There is a requirement of listing some of the new entrants into it. So maybe there was a felt need of accommodating unmarried cohabitations or single parent families, or the kind of contract marriages. Of course, in the Islamic societies, most of the marriages are contract marriages. You sign a contract. There's nothing wrong, actually. It's the thing that it is a relationship, it is an agreement between two parties. A realization that it's an agreement between two parties has come much late in the other societies. Islam has understood it long back. Let's see, these are two parties that are coming together for a purpose. Let us make a formal agreement. And these agreements, now we call them marriage certificates, etc. So on those lines, it's a very futuristic religion. You should know to the intricate detail. Maybe perhaps to know the intricate detail of how many years or how many days you would want to be together. So the kind of mutta marriages, you have particular time period. I'm marrying for the purpose of my offspring. Once the offspring are born, I get separated. I wanted a legal heir, you are giving me the legal heir. Now with another title, you are using it in the form of surrogacy, etc., etc. That was already there in a much established legal format. Now when you are doing this, there are so many what we call ethical things that are coming into the picture, etc. There, the things are well taken care actually. Now I want to move to something else, which I really love. Instability of marriage. क्या हो रहा बाबा? Instability of marriage. Not every instability reaches or is equal to divorce. Divorce is the final culmination of all those unstable instances. That is the finality. There could be several ups and downs. In every relationship, there are ups and downs. Between parents and children, between brothers and sisters, between wife and husband. Everywhere there are ups and downs. So it should be like an economic cycle that should properly have this. The ability, the permanency of the relation is judged when you are able to bring it from a depression to the positive state. So I think whenever the relationships are going so deep into depression, that's where there's a huge push that is required. Otherwise, it would break there. We have already, during our talk today, seen what could be the major instances where the disturbances might come. Adultery comes as the first level problem. Adultery, infertility, insanity. Sometimes, you don't know that the fellow or the girl is insane. Later you'll know. Then what can you do? You cannot take the insanity throughout your life. Even otherwise, more is the X, more is the insanity. You have done in your classes, no? As the X chromosome goes on increasing, there is more of insanity coming up. This is something that was said by Makanza. What he says is, if the rights over the wife are incompletely transferred to the husband at the time of marriage, the marriage will be unstable. More complete the transfer of rights, more stable the marriage is. More complete the transfer of rights, more stable the marriage is. Those are only some examples that are written there. First and foremost, you might think of is the sexual rights, the complete transfer of sexual rights. It's not that I partially hand over the rights to you, rest of it I keep it with me for the benefit of the others. You have the other ones, domestic, economic. Till the marriage, whatever you were earning, you are giving to your parents, being a female. Once the marriage happens, now the responsibility is you build the family of the destination. Family of origin has to be enough reduced to be only a pastime. But otherwise, major beneficiary from your earnings should be the family of destination or procreation. Somehow, suppose both the families, family of origin, family of procreation, both of them at the same time have a similar problem. Who should be given more attention, with whom your presence is mandatory? A female's presence becomes mandatory. that decides the complete or incomplete transfer. If the same problem is there is more than necessary presence with the family of procreation rather than for the family of origin. Nature of the problem may be same, intensity may be same. I am speaking of the normal human families. If at all you say that, no, my family is not that, you are a super family. You don't belong to a normal category. Maybe you are an abnormal category. I didn't say. I wanted to give you some examples where I think the last one is also understood. Rights over the wife's children. So the one that married the girl has to be the rightful responsible of the children. Which one? एक था, मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा ठीक से. Long time back there was this movie, Salman Khan, साथ में वो कौन है, शाहरुख खान, उसकी वाइफ कोई थी, हाँ पता नहीं नाम याद नहीं आ रहा, होमवर्क नहीं किया उस पर. So the whole thing was, though he was a friend or brother like whatever, अब आधी रात को आपको डायरिया हो गया, आप फोन कर रहे हो, and if she is leaving her husband, she has to leave her husband and take care of your diarrhea, though you are a brother. That comes under the incomplete transfer of domestic rights. Everything said and done, to whom you will have to give your complete self. It's not that thoda idhar rakh liya, thoda diya. I didn't want to elaborate on that basically. One major problem that occurs with the earning girls is the economics. Till the marriage I was taking care of my parents, and after that also I would want to, there may be objections. After all, I married you looking at your paycheck. And you would want to be here, want to send the paycheck to your parents, I don't want you. It's as simple as it is. See, I restrict myself talking of these things so that if at all any married people are there in the future also, you keep on thinking of these things. कि मैम ने ऐसे कहा था, my marriage would get into instability. No, I should. But then I think these are the things from where things start. That's what I said. Whenever there is a similar kind of a problem, both the societies, both the families are experiencing. The presence of the girl is called for in the family of procreation rather than her parental family. So it's as simple as the boy's father's health is much more important than the girl's father's health. When I'm saying these things, that might leave some kind of an acidic feeling, some kind of a bitter feeling. So in simple terms, whatever we are speaking of, whether that is the sexual right, so you can, I am once again taking you back to the same example of Khasa, that comes very handy for us. There is an incomplete transfer of sexual rights there. When she is with us, she is fine. When she is not with us, she is not so fine. How long the male fellow might be content with whatever he is getting. He is very clearly observing that she is spending a little time here and more time there. Every time she is going there, she is coming with a child. This is something like parting on the sexual rights, affection. So come what may, give birth to my children alone. Sir, we'll see here that as societies move from band to state level, or more simple foraging societies to industrial societies and more modern societies, the rules of divorce seem to be becoming stringent. There are certain occasions in the rites of passage, in the stages of life, that attained a significance. Marriage was one such institution which in several mainstream religions started to be considered as a sacrament. especially when you are looking at the Hindu marriage. A Hindu marriage is considered to be a sacred thing. And many of the religions believe that marriages are made in the heaven. They are made in the heaven and they are thrown onto the earth to fight endlessly. What is missing in the marriage is that heavenly feeling. So here we will see that how simple the annulment can be. So simple societies were more accommodative in that way. There is one other instance Majumdar shows in the Khasa. So it might so happen that things were not fine, we parted. I went my own way, you went your own way. It is not simply that. They can stay next to each other. The two houses of the newly wed can be next to each other. Inviting pleasantries. So accommodative. Now you are from a mainstream society. How would you take that? Can there be a very casual acceptance? Me and the broad-minded Gavatti. You need not have to immediately agree on it. But generally, as we are moving forth, you see the Hindu Divorce Act, so many timelines, and there is a period where you are not supposed to meet each other. Initially they say you be with each other for some time, and still if you are willing you apply. Once you apply, there's some more time within which you are not supposed to meet. In the meantime, if you have met, the whole thing is null and void. The whole process takes so much of time. You are in a hurry, but the law is not allowing. Instead of waiting, you start your own business. That becomes all the more illegal thing. These legal systems are in a way trying to protect the kind of relationship, considering it to be a sacrament kind of. Who is at fault? That is immaterial. In any such kind of marital relationship, you don't know for sure whose fault it is. When things happen behind the curtain, you cannot call every time for a proof. A supernatural, though it's a sacrament, cannot come and show a proof to the judiciary. So what is happening in that mainstream religions is there is a consideration that this is more or less permanent, and the legal systems are coming to protect the kind of nuptial bond. It is taking time for. But of course, times seem to be changing. So initially, there has been a changing, the changing frequency or the adaptation or the acceptance of the institution of divorce. But we see that more and more marriages are moving towards divorce. More and more marriages moving towards divorce. This has an increasing tendency these days. More and more percentage of divorces, and per annum the numbers are increasing. Of course, population is also increasing, but from the marriage percentages also we see that more and more percentages moving towards the divorce. So some statistics also you'll be provided with some tables so that your answers can be more constructive to show the numbers. And I will try to also accommodate religion-wise. Within each religion, what is the percentage of marriages that are going towards the divorce, etc. So you can see in which religion marriages are more stable. That kind of a statement can also be drawn. Everything said and done, I think what is changing is the tolerance levels. As the tolerance levels are going down, you would want to get out of the system. what would happen after you get out of the system, you are really unmindful of. There is the victimization of the child that happens, that goes unnoticed. Because you are busy with your own fight. You must have seen the children from the disturbed families. The kind of levels of confidence, the kind of task that they can actually take. Somewhere the harmonious environment shows on the performance of the child. See, the questions that were asked by sociologists is that when the numbers of divorces are increasing, we are not talking about some Western remote country, we are talking about our own society. When numbers are increasing, does it mean that our trust in the institution of marriage has come down? But then there's a flip side of it. It is not simply the numbers and percentages of divorces are increasing, it is also the numbers and percentages of remarriages that are also picking up. So maybe that it is not that the marriage as an institution has failed, but our expectations from marriage, I think, must have increased. So we are trying to try the other fellow one after the other. So there are multiple marriages one after the other. But then when you are increasing you are raising the bar of the standards, you see that the new marriages are also not meeting the requirements. So as somebody said, you are changing the master, but not the kind of master-slave relationship there. The institution is the same. It's only that the oppressor may be changing. Whoever may be the oppressor. I won't say that the male is the oppressor or the female is the oppressor. Whoever is strong in that relation, he or she is the oppressor. Now, there are a few examples here. Some on the funnier side as well. They are very, very simple. Zhu Honsi said there's a spelling error here. Kung, Inuit, very, very simple divorce. If they are unhappy with the said reasons, all the societies, they follow the same reasons. But one addition that we find in most of the tribal societies, in India as well, laziness of the male is a potential reason for seeking divorce. Laziness of the male. Male is not supposed to be lazy. I don't say that female can be. So check your laziness levels. Are they close to getting a divorce? How many of us are actually placing the shoes once we remove, after going home, placing there at the right place? Or you are leaving them there so that she will take care. Inuit is a population where both marriage and divorce is a community affair. Ahvanam అనే సినిమాలో both marriage and divorce is a community affair. Community has to witness both of them. Maybe it is to communicate to the rest of the people that, see, from now I'm available. Several other tribal communities. For Evans Pritchard, bride price, bride wealth is the deciding factor. More is the bride price, more stable the marriage is. For Evans Pritchard, more is the bride price, more stable the marriage is. Because if it is more, it is difficult to return. When you are not able to return, you will have to go with that. This is one other view. Roger Keesing, what he says is, marriages are more unstable if the communities are matrilineal, matrilocal, and matriarchal. If the societies are matrilineal, matrilocal, there is more risk of instability. Because after all, there are so many ego tussles there. If it is a matrilocal, you are moving into the residence of the female. You will have to be ready for several occasions of foregoing your self-respect, your ego, your that, your this, because after all you are staying there. Locality is an indication of your authority. In somebody else's locality, you cannot show your authority. Hopi is a matrilineal society. That's where he was trying to show an example. There are umpteen number of these. Khasi, Lushai, Gond, Mohali, Birhor, Korwa. Korwa, I like it the most. The easiest kind of a divorce there. She doesn't like. So generally they are in the nuclear family. She doesn't like you. She wants to get away, get rid of you. She can simply put your luggage outside the house. It means that you cannot stay there anymore. Pick up the luggage, go to some other house. I love the whole thing actually. It gives such a empowering feeling. You are deciding the fate of the other fellow. Divorce itself has a scintillating feeling. It is opening new doors and new opportunities for the people who are getting out of the relationship. See, in all these questions, you will have to incorporate the functional and dysfunctional side. When you are writing about functions of institutions, you should also talk about dysfunctions. See, divorce might be having a functional side. It is helping you to get rid of an uncomfortable relationship. But on the other hand, there are dysfunctions also. What is the fate of the kind of children, the kind of institution of family? It is not simply the two individuals that are involved that would be at the receiving end. It is the two communities actually. So there is a credibility loss for both of them. These are the difficult divorces. The first one is an Egyptian tribe. Bhils due to Hinduization, Lakshadweep tribes due to Islamization consider marriage seriously. This is unlike the triple talaq thing, where people are projecting that marriage annulment, their annulment is very, very easy. But in the Lakshadweep tribes, marriages, the divorces became much more stringent once they are exposed to the Islamization. They started considering the relationship much more sacramentally. An easy divorce was substituted by a difficult one. One reason you may perhaps see there is there are heavy bride prices they started to pay. So that is the kind of a religious group that has the practice of bride price. And we have already seen Pritchard saying that more is the bride price, more difficult the divorce will be. Bhils because of Hinduization, the first two because of Islamization. We see that divorce is becoming difficult. There are some random thoughts I wanted to share with you. There is this write-up, when marriage ends, what happens? That is that essay. You can browse for that essay. Nikki Hart, when marriage ends. Maybe a new life begins. There are things at stake. when one marriage ends, it is not simply end of that relationship, but it is actually a statement on the institution itself. It doesn't mean that you should be pushing yourself towards the uncomfortable one. But then everything said and done, when we see that, the ones for which you are getting into the relationship, there are alternatives emerging. This is what the functionalists say. As societies progress, for most of the social institutions, if not for all functions, for majority of the functions, alternatives will emerge. So functionality of the institution is because all those functions are coming in a package. If you are singling out those functions that any social institution is providing, singly those functions can be provided by several institutions, but all of them in a package can come with one single institution. That's where is the sanctity, that's where is the importance of that institution. Generally, when we talk about marriage and functionality, sexual functions, emotional functions, economic functions, etc., you can single out and you can find them fulfilled at several other institutions, several other places. That's what it is said. The functional view says that as a combination of functions, when it exists, it shows the importance of it. But with the progress in the culture, we see that alternatives are emerging for individual functions that started to have a disturbance on the institution's functions and the existence of the institution as a whole. So when you say that for the sexual gratification marriage is necessary, or for certain other emotional things marriage is necessary, when you started to look out for the other alternatives, if not for the entire list of functions, at least for one or two, if you are trying to depend on some external source, the sanctity of it and the existence of it becomes a question. I hope you have understood what I said. And then there are the other views. Divorce is because the institution of marriage was not giving what it has to give to each member. It's as simple as they are not paying for the services. They're not paying for the services. That's a typical Marxist view. Maybe if at all we start paying for it, and we also pay GST, you get a registration of GST and then pay, and then you get a claim of it, etc., etc. This looks slightly funny. And somebody says we are not being paid for the services, and at least 1 in 20 families, 1 in 50 families, we hear the educated lot saying this, we are not being paid. Maybe we should start paying. So proper bill books we make. Khana banaya, ye lo. You have given a sexual gratification, you take this. Start paying. Then you see how the relationship moves. We are actually taking a generalized reciprocity-based institution to a market-based institution. Maybe a day will come when, based on the demand, the price also may vary. Today I want such and such dish, then you start, taking a much higher one. I think the day will come, definitely, when the relationships within the households, within the institutions of marriage and family, would be placed in the marketplace. ఆయన ఎవరో చెప్పారు కదా, ఆయన పేరేం పేరు, గడ్డం వేసుకుని ఆయన ఉంటాడు ఒక ఆయన, వీరబ్రహ్మేంద్ర స్వామి. There's somebody called Veerabrahmendra Swami ages ago. He has said all this, that this will happen, women will ride the cars and women will run the offices, and this will happen, this will happen. So one fine day, the houses would become marketplaces. and hawkers will be there. Kind of. Goodenough and Edmund Leach, they say that, see, like any other social institution, marriages also have their demise. The demise will give rise to a new social institution, that is divorce. Just have a look at. I will show you something so that you apply the same for marriage as well, but I will take some time for it. So go back to see what you have done. We started with the types of marriage, incest, taboo kind of things, and then regulations of marriage, marriage and instability. Marriage payments was looked at long time back. I will give you a related one so that you can follow the same approach elsewhere also. In the topic of family, 2.4, definition, functions, types of family, changes in family, especially in the Indian joint family system, impact of urbanization, industrialization, and feminist movement on family. This is what is your syllabus. We'll start with the functions. Whenever a question on functions is asked, I said there has to be an element of dysfunction. Like how marriage is differently defined by different people, family was also differently defined. Very well accepted 200 odd definitions are there, but I depend on Peter Murdoch's definition. Family, a social group characterized by a common residence, economic cooperation, and reproduction. It includes both sexes, at least two of whom maintain socially approved sexual relationship, and one or more children, own or adopted. This is the definition of nuclear family. So definition of family varies based on what type of family you're defining. He had done a research on 240 odd societies where he found more prevalence of nuclear family. Most of the mainstream societies have either chosen or driven into nuclear family. Nuclear family has offered solution for several problems and came up with its own problems and vagaries. One major vagary we found is that there is no control of the voice of each of them. So you can have a war zone always active. Irrespective of the male's stature outside the home, he can be the victim of husband beating. Family is a social group characterized by a common residence, economic cooperation, and reproduction. It includes both sexes, at least two of whom maintain a socially approved sexual relation, and one or more children, own or adopted. We will start with the functions of family, then we will see types of family. Four or five thinkers on each I will take. Many names seem to be new, very contemporary. Generally, we depend on Peter Murdoch for the list of functions, but there are the others also in order to show respect to them. And there's one other thinker called Talcott Parsons. Sociologists give a very high respect to him. For us, he is only a passing reference. We haven't used him at all in all these classes so far. A functionalist. So this man was seeing these functions in marriage, in family. Family regulates the behavior, sexual behavior, reproduction. It is the primary caretaking institution of children. It is driven by division of labor. It fulfills all those primary group satisfactions of intimacy, of affection, of socialization. Every animal species would want to live in the company of its kind, all the more so with the humans, maybe because the others may not openly tell you, but we can demand. Yes. Those are the other two fellows. Ogburn and Nimcoff, affectional functions, economic functions, recreation. So it shows that nomenclature is changing, but underlying theme is the same. Protective functions. It's like when you would take a faster run, whether your family is affected or outsider is affected. It's as simple as that is. Ogburn was looking at lineage-based descents. So when you are having certain traditions descending, certain religious rituals or functions that run in the lineages, we are going to have a detailed talk about it in the concept of descent. We'll have a look at some of the communities where certain chantings and certain rituals, they flow through the maternal line, in certain other cases through the paternal line. So it's as simple as in the Hindu case, in the Hindu descent, we find that the family deity, maybe somebody who is going from the male lineage, the institution of family deity, that can be given as a religious function there. Care and training of children can be dubbed as educational, socializing function. Look at this man. Thomas Reid, family is for race perpetuation, for the offspring, for socialization, that is for children and one's own self as adults, a regulation of satisfaction of sexual needs, and economic cooperation. So it's like, you are actually trying to use the same things round and round with the difference in the terminology. The popular way of writing is people take up Talcott Parsons, and after explaining, you say that, see, these other people, Reid and Lundberg, etc., all of them have used the same kind of approach in tracing the functions. So there are two ways in which you write this answer. One is economic, emotional, sexual, and educational functions, the four popular ones by Murdoch. Talcott Parsons, psychological functions and socialization functions. Family teaches culture. family molds personality of the individuals. What you are is actually the result of the upbringing. It's as simple as it is. It may not be the case in 100% of the situations, but majority of the situations, what you are, what your personality is, it is the indication of enculturation. Not to forget different names that we have used, sir, as the functionalists. Those are the examples that you can see for the exceptions. Murdoch talks about that sexual, economic, reproductive, educational functions. And the list of exceptions are also given by himself. Nair society is already known to you, where there are no restricted sexual rights. Family is not an institution that follows restrictions of sexual rights. I have used another exception given by him, Banaro of Western Africa. Where the marriage can be solemnized only after the chastity of the girl is tested by a priest. So once she conceives, there is a proof of her fertility, then marriage is solemnized. Once again, sir. మీరు చెప్పండి ప్లీజ్ టెల్ మీ. Supreme Court has already struck it off, you know. How do you prove that there is a marital rape? Of course, there are certain things that might be existing, but you cannot prove. You can, but you need not have to give it such a big advertisement. You can, as a passing reference, mention there, because the kind of depth to which the questions are asked, especially in this discipline, are not of that kind. So you can perhaps write in the dysfunctions, if at all willing. But I don't think I buy out time for that particular topic when I am running out of time. That can be a major topic for your general studies, but not for me. In fact, I had in the beginning of our course asked you to read certain legislations, such as domestic violence or dowry prohibition, etc., etc., so that wherever necessary you can use, whether it is in. In the economic and educational functions, you can give the exception of kibbutz. In the educational function also, I have written towards the end, kibbutz. Kibbutz are the households in the Israeli populations. Kibbutz are the households in the Israeli population of kibbutz. Kibbutz itself is the name of the tribe. The households are called either kibbutz or kibbutzim. These are the households where the children grow up. So it is like, children are not growing up along with their parents, in the presence of their parents. So it is something like a community where parents are staying in different apartments and the children are sent to the community growing home. So all the children actually live there. It's not that they would not be coming home, they would be coming back and forth home, but major part they would be spending in the kibbutzim, irrespective of whether a family has children or not. They would be contributing to the upbringing of the children in the kibbutzim. That's where we said economic functions, there is an exception there. The parent alone is not responsible for the rearing of his child. He, along with several others, for several other children would be contributing. So there is no strict demarcation between my family and the others, my children and the others. And similarly, in the educational functions, the role played by the parent or the family in the education, in the enculturation is very limited in the case of kibbutz. Bush schools are also something of that kind. These are the community schools. Youth dormitories was the old-time example. Killi is the name of youth dormitories in the Ho. Youth dormitories are the place where the young ones, till one gets into the relationship of a marriage, they are the members in the youth dormitories, the place where they learn various things, martial skills or the cultural things, occupational things. So youth dormitories are the schools there. Azande, we have mentioned in the previous class the exception of reproductive functions in marriage, where we found that Azande have the boy wives, and there are other tribes like Dinka, where female marriages are also reported. Those are all the functions that are mentioned by various thinkers. Now look at this. These are some of the dysfunctions. Norman Bell, children are the emotional scapegoats for the violence in the family. You can't beat your wife and husband, and hence you are beating the child. Very common in the households. You yell at the child. We don't understand that yelling is also an abuse. You can actually recall your own phases of growing up. With what tone the parent used to talk to you, address you. When you are doing something that shall not be done, how was it communicated to you? Was it through the stick, or with a voice, or with the eyes, or with something else? Edmund Leach, a popular fellow, nuclear family isolates the individuals from the kin group because it teaches them me-centeredness, teaches them the dichotomy. Nuclear family teaches to be non-accommodative, non-selfish. Lying talks about nexus in the family. Family teaches individuals to take sides in the conflict. Are you in my side or their side? Siblings fighting, so you have to take sides. Especially if you are an younger fellow, you have a lot of load on you. Whom should I side with? And sometimes children are dragged into the fights of the parents. You are supposed to take sides. Teaching obedience is negatively seen by Liang. Teaching obedience in the sense, as somebody was saying, don't question the parent, don't question the teacher, kind of a thing. Obedience is fine. Discipline is fine. Thrusting obedience on them, so much so that they are not supposed to question. They have to obey whatever is said. Talcott Parsons says, if at all you're doing that, you would be producing children that would grow up to be citizens that do not question any kind of injustice, any kind of negative element that happens in the society. So maybe, family is producing such kind of children there who wouldn't question, who would simply obey. Children are destroyed by the family by several means, for that matter, either by teaching them to be extra obedient, or not training them in the cultural aspects, or not helping them in building their personality. It is actually the other side of it. Margaret Baston, being a female, being a Marxist, a feminist writer, she should actually say that exploitation in the family, you're not paying for the domestic labor. And I really love that last statement. Family provides the basic commodity of capitalism, that is the manpower. Yet family is not paid for producing and upkeeping the manpower. You are producing anything, you are paid for it. You are producing children, you are producing manpower, you are keeping up, and then you are not being paid. So our Chief Minister is doing a lot. Girl child. Early childhood care and protection packages are given, 15,000, 12,000, with all those things, medical kit, basic sanitation things. These are some of the dysfunctions. Seniors. They are not formal schools. They are supposed to be the places where you assemble, you spend your nights there, and you try learning various things. You do one thing. From your booklet, there is this topic, page number 35, typology of family. Typology of family, and on 37, joint family and changes coming up. And there are a couple of essays that I have given. On page 49, economic development and changing family system. 3 I have named, sir. One is family typology. We will be taking this up in tomorrow's class with examples. Examples I haven't written in this write-up. Joint family, changes coming up. And on 49, economic development, changing family system. Have a good time.